Hello and welcome to another episode of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey. We are here live on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel and on Twitter at BRamseyKSR. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. I've put out a ton of content over the last 24 hours. I have a video breaking down each of the four NCAA tournament regions. We talk about upset picks. We break down each matchup individually in a little bit more depth than we'll do here today. Talk about some dark horses that can make some runs in each of those regions, and then ultimately picked the likely winner of each region. And then also, obviously, throughout March Madness and beyond, we'll have a ton of college basketball content on Twitter at BRamseyKSR. So as always, make sure you are following me there as well, because that's the best place to stay up to date with all of my content. If you're watching here live today, please hop into the comments if you have any thoughts or questions throughout today's show. We're just going to sit back and fill out our official Brandon Ramsey bracket for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, there's two first four games still to be played this evening. We'll see if that even factors into any of my thoughts as we go throughout the bracket. But if you want to see my thoughts on each matchup, this is the show for you. And as I said, please hop into the comments section and I will answer any questions, or we can go back and forth on any thoughts as I fill out this bracket. First off, I guess one question for anybody watching: are you a round by round person, or are you a region by region person? Because I start in the top left and I fill out all of my first round brackets going top to bottom, then I flip over, go top to bottom, then I go back and do the second round. I know a lot of people also go region by region, where they're going to get like a Final Four person out of the East and a Final Four person out of the West, et cetera, et cetera. I go round by round. That's how we're going to be doing it today. Starting in the upper left corner, that would be your, let's see, I don't even know what, that would be your South region, featuring number one overall seed Auburn. Obviously, I'm going to have them advancing over Alabama State, who won on a miraculous Hail Mary layup last night over St. Francis. That was a heck of a way to tip off March Madness. In the 8-9 matchup in the South, we have Louisville against Creighton. And again, for a little more in-depth analysis on each of these matchups, go back and check out my region-by-region previews here on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show. I go more in-depth into my thoughts on each individual round of 64 matchup. I really like Ryan Kalkbrenner. Both of these teams are a little banged up. Chucky Hepburn, I love, though, too, in the backcourt for Louisville. This game is being played in Lexington, which I think is a little unfair to the other teams in the South region, especially number one overall seed Auburn, who could potentially be in the second round here. I am going to take the Cardinals here. I think Coach Pat Kelsey has this group playing at a high level. I think Chucky Hepburn and that guard play will be enough to move the Cardinals on. The next game, 5 versus 12, Michigan versus UC San Diego. Obviously going to be a trendy upset pick here with San Diego. They have won 30 games this season and are riding the nation's longest winning streak at 15 games. The Tritons force as many turnovers as any team in college basketball. Michigan does not have a great backcourt. They are very prone to turning the ball over. That could be kind of a tick mark in the column for the Tritons. However, I think the size of this Michigan team with Danny Wolf and certainly Vlad Golden as well, I think that's just going to be too much for UC San Diego in their first year even being eligible for the NCAA tournament after transitioning from Division II. I also think, and I talked about this on my South region preview, I think Michigan's honestly a little bit underseeded for a team that competed all season to win the Big Ten regular season, then went on to win the Big Ten tournament championship. For them to be a 5 seed, I just don't think this is a great matchup for UC San Diego, so I'm going to take the Wolverines there. I think we're going to get our first upset pick of the bracket here. 4 seed Texas A&M, 13 seed Yale. Do I love this upset pick? No. This was more of a bracket strategy pick than it is who does Brandon Ramsey actually think will win this game, and I'll touch on that now. I think that Michigan would beat Texas A&M anyway. I think that Michigan is going to go to the Sweet 16 in this bracket. I think that Yale has a real chance to beat Texas A&M because I just don't think that Texas A&M is all that skilled offensively. I think Yale can make threes against them. I think that Yale's a very good defensive rebounding team that can at least can like that they can at least compete with the Aggies on the boards. Now, does the athleticism and sort of the chaos of the Aggies, does that scare me against a Yale team that's finished playing in the Ivy League? Yeah, that concerns me a little bit. But I do think that Yale is capable of beating Texas A&M. And since I think that Michigan will win anyway, I'm not going to lose a whole lot here by picking against Texas A&M. Whereas if Yale does win and I get that right, then you really pick up some points. So again, that's more of a bracket strategy pick than it is like genuinely, hey, Brandon, you have to put $200 on one of these teams to win. Who are you taking? In that situation, I'd probably take Texas A&M, but I like picking this in your bracket, 13 seed Yale over the Texas A&M Aggies as your first upset pick here in the round of 64. North Carolina looked incredible last night. I know San Diego State was down a guy. I know they didn't play very well. North Carolina played as well as I've seen them play in a while. Now that they have been playing better down the stretch, the loss to Duke notwithstanding, they have shot the ball better. RJ Davis, we know, is a guy that's capable of taking over in the month of March and leading this team on a run. Elliot Cadeau was excellent last night. They made like 50% of their threes. If that continues to happen, this is a Tar Heels team that can make some noise in March. But I'm really high on Coach Chris Beard. I'm really high on this Rebels backcourt. Matthew Morrell, Jalen Murray, and then Sean Padula as well. Those guys can really shoot it. I think that they can maybe even win the backcourt matchup with the Tar Heels, if not at least play it to even. Then I think like, Jamin Brakefield, Dre Davis, Malik Dia, those guys in the front court for the Rebels would be enough to advance 6 seed Ole Miss on, even though North Carolina did look awful good on Tuesday. And it is trendy to pick one of those 11 seeds that won a play-in game, but we might be getting to that later. Iowa State and Lipscomb, I know that Iowa State will be without Keshawn Gilbert. That's a huge, huge loss for the Cyclones. I still like with Tamin Lipsey and what they have offensively with some other pieces there, and certainly what they bring on the defensive end of the floor. Earlier in the season, I was beating the drum of this being a Final Four national championship contender type team. They fell off a little bit. Then now with Gilbert out, I think that them advancing very far in this bracket is unlikely, but I do think they have enough. But Jacob Ognisevich is a name to know for Lipscomb. Really good player, very mobile, athletic, like 6'9" forward. He'll be one to watch for Lipscomb, and they also have some guards that can really, really shoot it from three-point range, but still give me Iowa State there. Marquette and New Mexico in the 7-10 game. This is going to be super, super up-tempo. Coach Richard Pitino's team likes to get up and down, and they have one of the best mid-major guards in all of college basketball, and Donovan Dent, also True Washington. In the front court, you have Nelly Jr. Joseph, but Cam Jones is a second-team All-American. I think him and David Joplin, if those guys who still really haven't hit their full stride in terms of shooting it as well as they did last season, I think that if those guys have a good March, we're talking about a team that can go pretty darn far in this bracket. We'll get to that in coming rounds. But I think that Marquette, this is a team that at one point was like 18-3 overall, would have been talked about as like a 2 or a 3 seed. And then they lost to some of the best teams down the stretch in the Big East. It's not like they really fell off. They just lost to some good teams. I think this is a team that's very, very dangerous as a 7 seed. As much as I like Donovan Dent and Coach Richard Pitino's team there at New Mexico, I'm taking the Golden Eagles to move on. And then Michigan State over Bryant, not much to talk about there. Florida over Norfolk State. Norfolk State will muck the game up a little bit, playing some zone. I said this in my West Region preview. I think this is a game that could be like 13-11 after the second TV timeout. But then the Gators are playing the best basketball of anybody in the country. They will move on. The 8 seed, two-time defending national champion, UConn against number 9 seed Oklahoma. I think Sam Godwin's status is still up in the air, I believe, for the Sooners, which will certainly hurt them around the basket. Against the Huskies, Liam McNeely's had an outstanding freshman year for UConn, but they're just missing a lot from last season. Like Stephon Castle's not walking through that door, and Donovan Clingan and all these guys like Tristan Newton, they don't have those players anymore, and it's really showing for this Huskies team. And I know one thing: Jeremiah Fears is one of the best guards in college basketball. The freshman for Oklahoma who's going to be a lottery pick. Jalen Moore is a really intriguing pick and pop stretch 4 guys, excellent in isolation. This Sooners team has some real individual talent. I think in March that can win you games. And then Jeremiah Fears and Jalen Moore are the type of players that can go get you buckets in difficult situations. And I think that will be enough to actually knock out Coach Dan Hurley and the Huskies in round one. Another 5-12 matchup that a lot of people, and basketball, Benny, I'm going to get to your Liberty question when I get to that region with Liberty and Oregon. So I will answer that once we get to that portion of the bracket. But Memphis, Colorado State, this is hardly even an upset because Colorado State is favored in terms of the line. I think they're like -2.5 in this game. Nick Clifford is one of the best players that you may not have heard of yet going into March Madness. If you're just a casual fan and you're filling out your bracket, like this Colorado State team is really, really good. And Nick Clifford is a borderline All-American type player, one of the best scorers in college basketball. And it's going to be fun because he's going to be going up against PJ Haggerty and Memphis, another one of the best individual scorers in college basketball, but no Tyrese Hunter, most likely, for Coach Penny Hardaway's squad. They had an excellent season, 29-5. I feel like people, are hesitant to give them credit because, there's some questions about how much people liked Penny Hardaway and all of that. But they've had an excellent season. They won the regular season, American Athletic Conference tournament, and the American Athletic Conference tournament. It's really hard to do, to sweep the regular season and the tournament, no matter what league you are in. So I give them a lot of credit for that. But again, I'm riding Nick Clifford in March. I think that the Rams and Coach Niko Medvedev, they're going to go on and continue dancing as the 12 seed upset here. Maryland and Grand Canyon. A big fan of Coach Bryce Drew. Big fan of this Grand Canyon team. I watch them late night a lot throughout the season. But if you follow me on Twitter at BRamseyKSR, or you tune in weekly to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show, you know how much I like this Maryland team, led by Jacoby Gillespie, led by Julian Reese, Derek Queen. I think that their starting five is legitimately as good as anybody's starting five in college basketball. Now, is depth a little bit of concern for the Terrapins? Yes, it is. But I think that this Maryland team is one that can go on a little bit of a run in March. If you looked up and they were in San Antonio, I would not be completely shocked. I think they're a dark horse candidate for that type of a run. I think that with what Grand Canyon is going to try to do, they're going to try to run with Maryland. I don't think that's going to work out great. Also, Grand Canyon is not a very good three-point shooting team. So I do see the Terrapins getting through and moving on there. In the 6-11 matchup, you have Missouri against Drake. Certainly a contrast of styles here. Missouri's very athletic. They're going to try to turn you over, pressure you defensively. They play as much zone and press as really any high major team in college basketball. Drake, led by Coach Ben McCollum, who's certainly now rumored for the West Virginia job. He's rumored for the Iowa job. He's got 4 of his 5 guys from Division II Northwest Missouri State starting for him. They won 31 games. Bennett Sturts was the Missouri Valley Player of the Year after playing last year in Division II. Excellent story. They play at a snail's pace. Like, they're trying to play this game under 60 possessions. I don't think that Missouri is going to allow that to happen. I think that the way that Missouri plays, I think with their experience through the SEC, I think with their athletes, it's going to be easier for them to dictate the pace on the Bulldogs as opposed to Drake doing it on Memphis. Coach Dennis Gates, outstanding work this year in Como, took the Tigers from 0-18 in the SEC last season to a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. This year, Mark Mitchell's had an outstanding season for Missouri. Anthony Robinson in the backcourt, certainly what Caleb Grill and Tamar Bates can do as shooting threats. I just think it's too much talent for this Drake team, though I do love Drake and their story this season. I think Missouri is going to move on there. Texas A&M and UNC Wilmington. I think Texas Tech is essentially just like a 5th, number 2 seed, quite frankly. JT Toppin, an All-American this season for the Red Raiders. I do not see a situation where UNC Wilmington is much of an upset threat there in round 1. Potentially the most compelling first-round matchup throughout the entire bracket is Kansas versus Arkansas. Coach Bill Self against Coach John Calipari. Obviously, it has not been the season that we expected for the Jayhawks. Hand up, I was wrong. Before the season, I had them preseason number 1. I said they had the best roster in college basketball. No, they don't. I thought they did a lot to help last year's team. They added shooting. Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo's had a very good year. But when you're still trying to play, and I get it. Like, I've coached. I can't even imagine how hard it is when you have DeJuan Harris, when you have KJ Adams, when you have Hunter Dickinson. Like, the idea of not playing those guys as many minutes as you can, like, it seems insane because they're all excellent players and they've been guys that have helped you. Well, I mean, 2 of them helped you win a national championship. Hunter Dickinson's an All-American. Why would you not want to play those guys as much as possible? But when they're on the court, you just can't shoot. There's no floor spacing. And we really saw that be an issue this season for the Jayhawks, but they are still excellent defensively. And we know this Arkansas team is not necessarily excellent offensively. Boogie Flan's coming back. Is Adu Thiero coming back? We'll see about that. Quite frankly, the Razorbacks didn't start winning until Boogie Flan went out. And now entering him back in there and him having to play with John L. Davis, I don't like the timing of that, to be quite honest with you. Even though Boogie Flan was one of the top playmakers in the country when he was in the lineup, it was kind of at the detriment of what John L. Davis was able to do. And we saw the team really take a leap up once John L. Davis became their best player, which is what I had said all season long. I think Kansas will find a way to advance here. And then Coach Rick Pitino and St. John's, they're going to overwhelm Omaha. I don't see them kicking any trash cans as they have been known to do now. I think St. John's is moving on up to the East region. We have Duke over tonight's winner of Mount St. Mary's and American, an 8-9 matchup between Mississippi State and Baylor. VJ Edgecombe's had an excellent freshman season for the Bears. This is a team that's been decent on the defensive end of the floor, but honestly just haven't put it all together offensively this year under Coach Scott Drew. Been a little bit of a disappointment. Notre Dame has been a fine transfer from Miami, but Jeremy Roach has been a little bit of a disappointment coming from Duke. Jaden Nunn has shot the ball very well for the Bears, but I think that Josh Hubbard and what he can do with this Mississippi State team is going to be too much. And to me, I said this on my East Region preview, I think we deserve, as college basketball fans, we deserve a round of 32 matchup with Josh Hubbard going against the Duke Blue Devils. So give me the Bulldogs in the 8-9 matchup. Here you go, basketball, Benny. We're talking about number 5 seed Oregon, number 12 seed Liberty. Again, would I want to bet my house on Liberty beating Oregon? Heck no, I wouldn't, because Liberty can be very up and down. But here's what Liberty can do. They can shoot the absolute cover off the ball. They could come out and make 14 threes in this game. Now, they could also come out and not make their threes and lose by 17 points. That would not shock me. But this team is elite from beyond the arc. They are, I'm pulling it up now, they are 8th in the country in terms of the percentage of points that come from beyond the arc. They're 5th in the country, shooting 39.5% from three-point range. They are as efficient offensively, especially from beyond the arc, as anybody in the country. And then conversely, they do as good of a job as anybody in the country at taking away the three. Their opponents only shoot 28% from deep. I think that you're going to have a lot of fun watching this group and this one. Taylor and Peter and those guys, if they can get hot from three-point range, and obviously Caden Matheny and his 94 threes this season, they are going to look to fill it up from beyond the arc. And just as I mentioned, with me picking Yale over Texas A&M, I think that Arizona's moving on anyway, so I'm not giving up a whole lot by picking Liberty in an upset over Oregon. So I think that Arizona, obviously I'm going to take them to beat Akron here, but then I think they would be able to probably advance regardless. Akron, it's kind of similar to that, to the Texas Tech Grand Canyon game that I talked about. I just don't think it's a great matchup. I love John Gross's squad. They went 17-1 in MAC play, won the MAC tournament at the buzzer against Miami, Ohio. But they're going to play at a super fast tempo against a team with Caleb Love and the Wildcats that can get up and down in their own right and put points on the board. I just don't think that trying to run and score with Arizona is going to work out great in this one. So I do have Arizona advancing. This East region here is where I'm getting a little frisky with some picks, and I think we could see some upsets start to pile up, though. I have VCU over BYU. I think that they're just such a staunch defensive team that, as good as Igor Dimon and the Cougars have been this season, I just think the VCU is going to be able to turn them over some, going to be able to take them away from three some, make life uncomfortable, and then they're just going to find a way to score enough to win this game. So I have VCU moving on to the round of 32. Wisconsin over Montana. I said this in the Midwest region preview. Montana is not built like the other 14 seeds, to be quite honest with you. They're like 150-something in KenPom. Wisconsin is the lowest 3 seed. How they got the worst 14 seed is beyond me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they did. John Tanji and the Badgers dancing on. 7 seed St. Mary's, 10 seed Vanderbilt. I'm always hesitant. I really like the Gales. I watched them a lot this season over the past 3 years or so. The West Coast Conference has been St. Mary's Conference, not Gonzaga's. St. Mary's has been the best team in that league over the last 3 years. and they have a very, very good team once again. Excellent, excellent defensively. It can just suck the life out of you on the defensive end. But teams that play at a snail's pace and then couple that with not being the most efficient offensively, they really scare me in tournament play. And that's your issue with Coach Randy Bennett's team this year. Not only are they one of the slowest teams in college basketball, but they also only shoot 32.6% from three. They're under 70%. They're bad from the free throw line. They don't necessarily shoot it well from 2-point range either. So I think this Vanderbilt team, led by guys like Jason Edwards, obviously a veteran, AJ Hoggard, what Tyler Nickel can do as an elite level 3-point shooter, and some other floor spacers there. I think Vanderbilt is just the better team and certainly more equipped for March. And I think the 10 seed Vanderbilt can knock off St. Mary's there. And then I've got Alabama over Robert Morris. So there we go. That's the hard part. We've gotten down to the round of 32 now. Now that we've talked about the matchups a little bit individually, we can probably go a little bit quicker here. I've got Auburn, Louisville. Again, I think that it's kind of crap that Auburn has to play as the number 1 overall seed. They're playing Louisville at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. That's crazy. That is crazy. I missed one. You're right, Trev. I got ahead of myself. All right. We've still got to go to the Midwest. We have Houston beating SIU-E, Gonzaga, Georgia. I think this is an interesting one. Watched a lot of Georgia, obviously, this year in the Southeastern Conference, but Ryan Nimhard, Nolan Hickman, this backcourt paired with Graham Ekane, what he can do around the basket. The pick and roll is so deadly for Coach Mark Few's team. I like Gonzaga to move on. The analytics still love this. Like they're top 10 in KenPom, and they're a number 8 seed. That's just, they've lost some tough games. They didn't even win the WCC this year. I get it, but they're going to be a tough out in March. 5 seed Clemson, 12 seed McNeese. Last year, Coach Will Wade's team came roaring into the NCAA tournament after a great regular season, and they laid an egg. They actually played Gonzaga, who we just talked about, and got their doors blown off. Now, I think that, generally speaking, it's a lot easier, and they have some guys from that team. It's a lot easier your second time around to make some noise in the tournament, because when you're scratching and clawing in these smaller leagues, the success is making the tournament. Like you win your conference tournament, and every fiber in your body relaxes because you're so excited about winning, about making March Madness. That's what you play the entire season for, is to make the NCAA tournament. Coach Will Wade's done that. McNeese has done that. They're now here to win a game/games in the NCAA tournament. I think they would have a really good chance of doing that if they didn't play Clemson. I think that Chase Hunter, Jaden Zachary, the toughness of their backcourt matches up well with McNeese. And like Ian Shefflin, what he can do inside, Victor Locken, those guys inside, the pick and pop ability of Chauncey Wiggins. I think that this Clemson team is tough enough. They're gritty enough. They won a ton of games in the ACC. I know it wasn't a great league this year, but it's still better than the Southland. They're still a bit more battle-tested than McNeese. They're going to be able to find a way. It might be an ugly game, but they're going to be able to find a way to advance. I like Purdue over High Point. I put out a tweet at BRamseyKSR yesterday, I believe, with my favorite 12-13 upsets, and I ranked Purdue as the least likely team to lose. And I know people like to poke fun at Purdue because they lost to St. Peter's a couple years ago, and they obviously lost to Fairleigh Dickinson a couple years ago as well. I just don't see, and I love Coach Allen Huss. I know him personally a little bit. This High Point team's not very good defensively. And you're telling me that Braden Smith and what he can do in a ball screen with Fletcher Lawyer space on the floor, with Trey Kaufman-Wren rolling to the basket, you're telling me that High Point's going to guard that over the course of 40 minutes? No, sir. Give me the Boilermakers. I think that is your easiest pick of the first round among the 4 seeds, to be quite honest with you. Illinois versus Texas and Xavier. First of all, I'm not sure if I've ever been more excited for a first 4 game than Texas versus Xavier, because I was really high on Xavier coming into this season. Ryan Conwell was excellent for the Musketeers, hit like 97 threes this year. Davian McKnight, Zach Fremantle, all those guys, very good players. I think I said it before the year when I had Paul Fritchner on my Big East preview show, who's a Xavier guy that covers the Musketeers. I think he said Sweet 16. for what he wanted out of Xavier. And I was like, yeah, I saw that as a Sweet 16 team. Now they were lucky to win enough games down the stretch in the Big East to even make the NCAA tournament, but they're there now. But they're playing a Texas team with a top 10 pick in Trey Johnson and other, Arthur Kaluma, a lot of other talent around him. Trayman Mark, who's come up big down the stretch for the Longhorns, one of 14 SEC teams to make the tournament. I've also been kind of riding the roller coaster of Illinois. Yakachonis, one of the most fun players to watch in the Big Ten. They have size across the board positionally there with the Illini, but they don't shoot it very well. And while they have the talent and the upside of like a 3 seed, the reason they're a 6 seed is they also played like a bubble team quite a bit. They lost 12 games this season, and I think the momentum that either one of these teams, Xavier or Texas, will get from winning this evening will be able to propel them past Illinois in the first round. So give me Texas or Xavier to beat Illinois in the first round. Kentucky, Troy. Let's be real. I'm picking Kentucky. I'm not. There's nothing else to say about that. I have a ton of Troy content on my Twitter at BRamseyKSR. I'll have a video breaking them down probably later this evening on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel as well. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll be able to go into this game much more in depth, so we don't need to spend much time on it here. UCLA versus Utah State. Sebastian Mack, Dylan Andrews, Sky Clark, all those guys. And then Tyler Bilodeau, what he can do, spacing the floor from the front court for the Bruins. I really like this UCLA team, and I just don't know if the Aggies of Utah State have enough defensively to stop them. They're 151 in KenPom adjusted defensive efficiency. Now, Coach Jared Calhoun in his first year for coming from Youngstown State, Utah State is excellent offensively, and a guy like Ian Martinez, one of the best shooters that you'll be watching this postseason, 71 threes this year. If you're looking for mid-major names to follow, go watch Ian Martinez when they take on the Bruins. But give me UCLA to advance, and then certainly Tennessee over Wofford. Now we are actually done with the round of 64. It's hard to get through that many teams. That takes a while, so we're going to try to go a little bit quicker. Again, I started to talk about it before Travis caught me that I skipped the Houston region, but I think it's crap that Auburn, the number 1 overall seed, has to play Louisville in Lexington, Kentucky. I just think they're better. I know they haven't played great of late, but Auburn will be able to move on. I already talked about my thoughts on Michigan making the Sweet 16, so I'm taking Michigan over number 13 seed Yale. Iowa State, Ole Miss, that's a tough one when you don't have Keshawn Gilbert in the game. Again, I've been high on Sean Padula. I've been high on Matthew Murrell. I've been high on Jalen Murray and what this Rebels backcourt can do. One of the teams still has Taman Lipsey, though, and I like Coach TJ Otzelberger, what they can bring on the defensive end of the floor. Love Coach Chris Beard. I genuinely, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do in that game. Give me Ole Miss. Let's go with the Rebels. If Sean Gilbert was going to suit up, I would take the Cyclones, but I believe he's just out for the tournament. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the case. Give me Ole Miss to advance. Travis says, I think Iowa State because UNC might. Well, and yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. That you think North Carolina might beat Ole Miss. Yeah, I mean, that would be a reason there. But, honestly, at that point, UNC might be playing well enough that it would be the Tar Heels. I mean, they shoot it like they shot it last night, man. They're gonna be dancing for a little while. I'm really tempted to pick Marquette and kind of blow up the bottom half of this South region because I really like Cam Jones, and I think that David Joplin and those guys are due to really get hot from 3 and get this thing rolling like it was earlier in the season. But down the stretch, man, there just weren't many teams playing like Michigan State. I talked about it. I think the most impressive 7-game winning streak in the country this season was what Michigan State did in their final 7 games of the regular season. I think that Jace Richardson is a star. I think he's one of the best freshmen now playing that way down the stretch. Jaden Atkins has had a really good year, but Michigan State doesn't shoot it very well. Their front court is kind of a mess on a game-to-game basis. And I think that there's a real chance where Marquette comes out, their guards are better, Their front court's going to give Michigan State problems. Let's go ahead and blow it up, folks. Let's blow it up a little bit. Let's have some fun. I'm taking Marquette to beat Michigan State in advance of the Sweet 16, which is going to make a really interesting Sweet 16 matchup when we get back to that. Got Florida over Oklahoma. There's going to be a couple SEC matchups here in the round of 32. It's just inevitable when you have 14 teams in the tournament. I've talked plenty about Jeremiah Fears and the Sooners, but I just think Florida's playing as good of basketball as anybody in the tournament right now. Maryland against Nick Clifford and the Colorado State Rams. Again, I'm riding the Maryland train. I think they will advance there. Texas Tech, Missouri. JT Toppin versus Mark Mitchell. That's going to be a really fun matchup to watch in the front court. I just think JT Toppin's better. He's the All-American of the group. I think Texas Tech is as complete as probably any team that's not on the 1 or 2 line in the country. So I'll go Texas Tech there. I was tempted by Kansas just because I do think that they're a team that can kind of turn it on maybe a little bit here. But with their shooting struggles and their offensive struggles, I think that Coach Rick Pitino and the Red Storm can really bottle them up and make life very difficult for the Jayhawks offensively because of the pressure and how good St. John's is defensively. So give me the Red Storm. So we went complete chalk there, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3 in the Sweet 16 of the West region. Duke certainly over Mississippi State, though. Like I said, I'm excited to watch Josh Hubbard just try to go ballistic against the Blue Devils in that one. I think Liberty has a chance to beat Oregon, but I think that they're the well run dry a little bit against Arizona, a team that can really fill it up. If Liberty made a bunch of threes to beat Oregon, I don't see them doing it again to beat Arizona. So give me the Wildcats there. VCU, Wisconsin, John Tonji, too good. This Badgers team, too good. Advancing to the Sweet 16. And then another round of 32 SEC matchup, Alabama or Vanderbilt. What I like about this Alabama team is that I think they can now actually beat you in some different ways. Are they great defensively? No. Are they still reliant on the three-point shot to some extent? And when they go cold, can it get tough for them? Yes. But the way they get to the basket and the way they finish it on the lob via the roll and the way Mark Sears and Aiden Holloway and those guys can play make, I think it gives them an opportunity to survive bad shooting nights, especially in the first weekend. So even if they don't play great against Vanderbilt, I think that they will have a chance to advance there. So we went completely chalk there as well. And I think this is probably a relatively chalky tournament. And I'm always a chalky picker regardless. I think that's what, there's going to be upsets. There's going to be more upsets than what I picked. But it's so hard to pinpoint them. And when you're filling out a bracket, it really hurts you if you don't pinpoint the right upsets. So I tend to lean a little bit more towards the chalk, but we did kind of get into it there in the South region to some extent. I have Houston over Gonzaga. I talked about it when I was breaking down the Midwest region here on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show preview. Gonzaga's tough. They really are. There's a reason why they've hung in the top 10 of KenPom all season. Ryan Nimharm, Nolan Hickman, Ben Gregg, Graham Ike, what all those guys can do in the pick and roll and to some extent the pick and pop as well. It's tough, but Houston's just so tough. And Mila Suzan has played now to a championship level in the Cougars backcourt. I just think they're too strong. Javion Francis, all those guys, they'll be able to find a way to beat Gonzaga. Purdue, Clemson. I know people don't like Purdue, but Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, that backcourt has won a ton of games. I think they'll be able to find a way. Trey Kaufman running against Ian Shefflin, that's going to be like as physical of an interior matchup as you've seen. Give me the Boilermakers there, and I think we're just going to finish off with chalk again. Obviously going to pick my Kentucky Wildcats over Texas or Xavier, though that's going to make me really, really uncomfortable. I don't want to play Trey Johnson again. It already didn't go great down in Austin, and I've already said what I've said about Xavier, but I do think that Kentucky can get it done and make it to the second weekend where they get to play in Indianapolis, which certainly makes me happy. And then Tennessee over UCLA. Tennessee they're going to give themselves a chance to win every game because of their defense. Now, at times their offense gives them a chance to lose every game, but Zakai Ziegler's had another All-American season. Chaz Lanier plays like an All-American at times, and when he does that, Tennessee's one of the 5 best teams in college basketball. I think they'll be able to find a way to get past this UCLA team. Working our way back up, we have Auburn versus Michigan. Again, I've bought stock in this Michigan team, but I just don't like the backcourt enough. I think they turned it over too much. Coach Bruce Pearl's team will overwhelm them to some extent in the backcourt due to some of that. Denver Jones will be, heating them up. Todd Pettiford will come in and heat them up for a turn, and then you can throw it inside of Janai Broom, who can certainly handle guys like Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden as well as anybody else in college basketball. So give me Auburn and Coach Bruce Pearl into the Elite Eight. Now a really interesting matchup because somebody's going to the Elite Eight here. 6 seed Ole Miss, 7 seed Marquette. Give me Marquette. I like Coach Shaka Smart's team. Like I said, literally just a month ago, this would have been a chalky pick. They were a 2 or 3 seed. Then they lost to UConn a couple times. They lost to St. John's a time or two. Then they lost to Creighton. They didn't take bad losses. They lost to other teams that are very good NCAA tournament teams, and it really slid them down the seed line here. I think they're better than a 7 seed, and I think that they're going to kind of prove that by making their run to the Elite Eight over the next 2 weeks. I've got Florida over Maryland. Again, I think Florida is the best team in college basketball, most complete team in college basketball right now. And then give me St. John's and Coach Rick Pitino over Texas Tech. I'm not as sold on this Texas Tech team and their other, quote-unquote, other pieces outside of JT Toppin as some folks. And I just think that with Coach Pitino coaching them up, with what this Red Storm team can do defensively, I'll take them to advance there. Duke, Arizona. This is the end of the run for Caleb Love and the Arizona Wildcats, playing his former rival from when he was at North Carolina in Duke. As long as Cooper Flagg is healthy, and as long as he stays healthy, I really do think that, and I honestly don't know about the status of Malik Brown, but I think that when healthy on a neutral floor, I think Duke is the best basketball team of the 2024-2025 college basketball season. Will they be healthy the entire March or the entire tournament? That remains to be seen. But for right now, I'm going to operate under the assumption that they have enough to at least get here to the Elite Eight in the East region. Coming out of the bottom half, it's chalky, I know, but I still have Alabama advancing. I think that they are as talented, certainly, as any of the 2 seeds. Mark Sears and those guys, Grant Nelson, are battle-tested. They played in the Final Four last year. I think they have certainly their sights to get back there this season. Houston versus Purdue. I've talked a lot about the ball screen play of Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn and those guys. The defense of Houston will finally be the end of the road for the Boilermakers. So give me the Cougars to advance. Kentucky, Tennessee. Nothing will make me happier than my Wildcats winning, is I'll be at that game if it's in Indianapolis. But I just don't know if they can beat Tennessee 3 times in a row. I do like the matchup for the Wildcats playing a team that just isn't as great offensively. But at some point, I think, especially with the injuries that Kentucky's dealing with, no Jackson Robinson in this game or, for the rest of the tournament, Lamont Butler's probably, he's not going to be playing at 100% either. Give me the Tennessee Volunteers there. So we're pretty darn chalky. We're 1-2, 1-2, and 1-7 in these matchups. Unfortunately, folks, I'm probably just going to be sticking with more chalk. I've got Auburn over Marquette. I've got Florida over St. John's. We're doing it. I'm going all 1 seeds. I know you hate it. You can yell at me in the comments. I got Duke over Alabama, and I got Houston over Tennessee. In my opinion, the 1 seeds are on a different level this season. I think that they are. I talked about it, I think, probably last week on this very show, where if you gave me those 4 1 seeds or the field, I'm taking the 4 1 seeds to win the national championship. Well, I just guaranteed myself that because they all made the Final Four. In Auburn versus Florida, man, that is a tough one because for so much of this season, I thought that Auburn was on a different level than the rest of the country. I really did. I thought they were I thought it was Auburn and everybody else. And then it kind of became Auburn, Duke, and everybody else. And then it became Auburn, Duke, and Houston, and everybody else. And then by the time we made it into, certainly to Nashville, the SEC tournament, and then after they won it, it became Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida, and then everybody else. So why would I not put those teams in my bracket to advance to San Antonio? But with the way they've played lately, like, am I going to take the team that played great over 3 or 4 months of the season, or am I going to take the team that's playing great in March? I'm going to take the team that's playing great in March. That is the Florida Gators. They advance to the national championship game. And then Duke versus Houston. To me, I'm just going to hedge my bet a little bit here. I'm just going to hedge my bet. of will Duke be healthy enough throughout the tournament? Because let's not forget, everybody hear me when I say this. I don't think Cooper Flag is even in the realm of soft, but he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's one of the best freshmen to play college basketball in decades. He's one of the most complete prospects that we've seen in a while in terms of NBA potential. If there are issues with him lingering or that get, that resurface along the road of March Madness, he's probably more likely to not play than other people. Again, that's not a shot at Duke. That's genuinely not a shot at Cooper Flag either. It's a business decision. And I am going to hedge my bet a little bit here and take Houston to beat Duke, partially because I think it's very possible regardless, and because, there's a world where something happens down, across the first 2 weekends and Duke doesn't even get there. So give me Houston. Then I think this is the year. I didn't think it before the years. I didn't think that Houston would have a good enough point guard in the wake of Jamal Shed for them to win the national championship. Over the last month or so, Milos Uzan has shown me that he can be the point guard on a national championship team. Pair it with LJ Cryer and all these other guys. This is the team. This is the Coach Kelvin Sampson group that is going to cut down the nets in San Antonio, in the home state of Texas, and Houston is your 2025 national champion over Florida. I'm going to fill in my total right now. What do we say? I'm going to say it is 74-71. Houston, that is a total of 145 points. There we have it. Bracket submitted on ESPN. Travis says, wow, I would love that for Kelvin. He's a good enough coach. He has deserved, or he has earned a national championship at that point. And you heard it here first. It's going to happen. We have chalky 4-1 seeds, but we had some fun there in that South region with a 6-7 Sweet 16 matchup between Ole Miss and Marquette. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I am somebody, by the way, that fills out, like, you get 25 brackets on ESPN. I'm going to fill out 25 brackets. I do limit myself to having one bracket that I enter into contests. This is my official bracket, so it's going to be this one, unless it's not. I reserve that right. But no, this will probably be my official bracket that I put out there. I'll tweet one out on Thursday morning at BRamseyKSR, so stay tuned for that. Those of you that watched me fill it out live today, I appreciate you all being here. We're over 330-some people watching today, so I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you're all as excited for the next few days, few weeks, the rest of March into April as I am. This is truly the best time of year, not just for me, but for a lot of people. It's a lot of fun. I'm heading to Milwaukee in the morning to watch Kentucky and Troy, and then I'll stick around and I'll definitely watch the Illinois game that evening, hopefully for some scouting purposes. Then I'll be back on Sunday to watch the second round games out there in Milwaukee as well. So really excited for that trip. But again, thank you all for being here. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. We'll continue to have more and more content here throughout the month. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at BRamseyKSR. Best of luck in all of your bracket pools. As always, feel free to hit me up if you have any further questions. Thank you all for being here today. Best of luck to all your teams in March Madness as well, and enjoy the very best time of the calendar year. Thank you.